Cool. Hey guys, and welcome to episode 57 of the Garage Athlete Show. We're joined tonight by Daniel Fraser, Rachel, completely forgotten Rachel's second name now.
Rachel Smith, it's like the most common surname ever.
Rachel Smith.
How to tell someone that's close to a competition. Yeah.
And Richard Cross. So Richard, I believe, used to coach Rachel a few years ago. In terms of like some rehabilitation work, because as we all know, Rachel does like to mess up her body, and her hypermobility makes things a little bit more challenging. So at the time, she reached out to somebody who helped her with that, and now the tables have turned, and Rachel has educated herself to the point where she's teaching a lot of us stuff. So we thought it'd be a great guest to get on. Just had a look at your Instagram, seemed to be very, very on it in terms of just straight talking, keeping things simple, but you obviously know your stuff as well. So yeah, Richard, why don't you introduce yourself? For those that don't follow you, your Instagram handle is roc.fitness on IG, so make sure you go and give them a follow, and yeah, let the people get to know you a little bit better.
Cool. So I've been PT now for about 10 years. Initially worked in a sort of typical office job, just got really sick and tired of it, and decided to make the change and can never look back from there. And since then, I've kind of worked in commercial gyms, I've worked in sort of strongman gyms, sort of on an S&C kind of basis, working with the Foundry in London. And yeah, just worked in the city as well, like training very kind of very like sort of stressed out people in high pressure jobs and things like that. And so everything from there through to kind of like your average Joes and kind of everything in between.
So I can see that you've moved into kind of like online coaching. So when you've obviously worked in all these kind of like different areas, where would you say like the type of client you prefer to work with?
I've got to admit, the reason that the big shift for me into online came as like a result of COVID, not really a sort of a desire to be purely online. I had the fantastic idea in 2019 to ditch all my online work and go purely into one-to-one.
Okay.
Which was a brilliant idea, obviously then going into 2020. But yeah, so obviously off the back of that, a lot of PTs now are in the online space, a hell of a lot more than they would be, and I'd definitely classify myself in that. But I personally really feel that kind of one-to-one is like the core product of personal training. And I personally believe that the best PTs are those who have a really strong background in one-to-one training. And when you've worked with, we've like done thousands of gym hours, you can kind of, when you're working with someone online, you can talk to people, not only you're individual, but you can find similarities, and someone will say something, you go, oh yeah, I remember that situation with this client. If you have a client who's a mother and she's got like a young child who might be like 18 months or something like that, you go, oh yeah, I remember working with this client. She had a young child. These are the things that worked. These are the things that didn't work, stuff like that. And I find that that's what really helps sort of like online coaching, is having that background and that knowledge base, which in my opinion can only really be formed from solid one-to-one PT. And I still do one-to-one personal training at the moment. Me and my housemate, we actually built a gym in our garden over lockdown, which we've affectionately referred to as the Shred Shed. And so we train clients out of there, both of us. And so still doing one-to-one. But I'd say at the moment I'm now predominantly online as a result of COVID.
I think it's an interesting point you say there about obviously COVID forced a lot of trainers to go into online coaching. And I don't know about you, but I think a lot of them weren't ready. They hadn't done enough time on the floor. They hadn't spent enough time in the trenches working with people one-to-one to, as you said, have that base of experience of, right, there's this stressed out traveling salesperson over here whose life's completely turned upside down, so having to work from home. And over here, as you said, your middle-aged mother with kids. Like, those two people's lives are going to be completely different, and how you coach them to get them from A to B is going to be, well, it's going to be different, just because they've got different kind of challenges and stuff. So yeah, I think it's an interesting point that you've kind of made there, and it's good to hear that you you built a gym at home. So obviously this podcast was created for the Home Gym UK community. So the majority of our listeners also kind of like have home gyms. So is that kind of something that you've always wanted to do? Is it just something where it's like, you know what, I'm getting sick of paying rent to gyms now? Or is it literally, right, I like having a gym in the back garden because the government can't take it away from me?
It's pretty much all of them. So like one of the things in I'm based in London, and a lot of London gyms will charge freelance personal trainers £1,200 a month, and and then they're kind of all scratching their heads wondering why no one's come back. You know, because the second the gyms were shut, they were just like, okay, bye, see you later, get out. We've cut off everything that you had, your revenue stream. Obviously, people then set up online. And so going back to your point about people not being ready, I 100% agree with that. I see a lot of people who've rushed into online thinking it's this absolute gold mine, and it really isn't. And I think they've really kind of like missed the wood for the trees. But having that sort of home gyms, I'm the sort of person where like exercise is very cathartic for me. I really enjoy it. I really I like keeping in shape. I like exercising. I'm a bit of a fidgeter, so it's really good for me physically, mentally. And also, I've built my kind of ethos and training my training plans over basically around free weights and barbell movements. Barbell movements, I get a bit of stick these days, but I personally thought they got huge application for people. And so for me, I don't need tons of kit. In my little gym, we've got a rack, we've got a bench, we've got some barbells, loads of plates, and a ton of dumbbells and a kettlebell, and we've got a Concept 2 bike, and that's it. Oh, and a safety bar. And so far, I've not had any instance where like I haven't been able to train a client through something, or and I train clients everywhere from young rugby players through to a 69-year-old type 2 diabetic, and so like everything between. And there's always a movement that you can find. And I find it very limiting when people say things like, "Oh, most people can't squat," and I just say like, that's absolute bullshit. Yeah, can they high bar back squat? Probably not. Can they goblet squat? Yeah, of course they can. Of course they can squat. Can they split squat? Of course they can. Majority of people, I find, if you take them from a barbell onto a safety bar, their squat really transforms with that weight shift. And I just really feel that people they pick the wrong tool and then blame the tool. And that's really not how I sort of go about it. And for me, it wasn't until I moved from a commercial gym where if I had a client who can't squat, I'll just go, let's jump on the leg press, let's jump on the leg extension. And that'll be a great way to blast their quads. But when I moved into a more of an S&C style gym, where the only machine they had was a lat pull down and a cable stack, suddenly you had to think out of the box. You couldn't just put everyone on leg extensions, leg presses and stuff like that. And you had to really, be a bit more creative.
Yeah, that's part of the joy of home gyms, I think. I'm hoping to train a bit tonight. I've just got a lat pull down, and I'm kind of like, oh, I could do a hamstring because if I do this, or I could do this, and then you suddenly get thinking a lot. But I think clients kind of like, I moved. It sounds like we've got sort of similar sort of situation. I was in a gym pre-COVID, but luckily I had a online base similar to how Don was before lockdown happened. But then since it opened back up, I've just train out of home, so I'm now coaching a few more people from home, obviously time permitting, because I've got 1,000 kids, but it's working good. Like at first I was a bit, I don't know if you found this with setting up your gym, I was a bit nervous would people want to train at my home? They think, oh, it's a bit, a bit rad, coming in to train at this home. They're used to these thousands of pounds of gyms. But I've actually probably found it's been the other way. They quite like that it's just like a, their own space where they're in, don't have to wait for anything. Obviously, you can keep on complete control of sanitization and that kind of stuff. But then it's almost like, they get quite a lot of the session because it's just you two there, no distractions, all the kit's based around them, and you can get some good sessions in.
I'd agree with that 100%. I found that clients liked it, and me and my housemate, who so he's in the Marines, and so obviously he wanted some place where he could keep his fitness levels high as well, because obviously that's very important for him. And it was kind of as much for us as it was for our clients. But so we wanted the gym to actually kind of look quite decent. We didn't want it to kind of look too shabby. So we bought one of those outdoor office units.
Oh, cool.
From that, and then we're very lucky to get our hands on some proper gym flooring as well. So the cool thing is that it smells like a gym because of the gym flooring. So it's got real thick padding in it. So that's kind of cool.
Question we get asked in the home gym group: flooring. It's become a meme.
So we were very lucky that the foundry we worked, they had refurbed. They put in some new stuff, and basically we managed to get some offcuts of the flooring. Awesome. And so we were very, very lucky with that, because it was just basically came across at the right time. We were able to pick some up. But yeah, we really we take a lot of pride in it. We keep it really tidy, because obviously we want clients to see that although there is that more sort of casual approach to it, and there is it's still professional, and it's still a place of work, and it's still something that we take quite seriously as well. So we're really up on keeping the equipment clean and tidy. Everything's put away, and everything looks quite organized. It's not just a bunch of dumbbells and barbells lying all over the floor. And the cool thing, also the other cool thing we've got is we astroturfed the grass.
Oh, awesome.
So what we did, we've got a really nice mirror fit, full rack to put goes inside the bench. And we just got some cheap squat stands picked up off eBay, and they stay outside. And so when the weather's really nice, we can take the kit outdoors. And that's something that clients really enjoy as well. And it really opens up opportunities there, because on the other kit I forgot to mention, we've got some sandbags, which I absolutely loved. I think they have so many applications. And so you can do things all of a sudden you've got things like loaded carries, you can do farmers walks, you can do all those kind of things, walking lunges, and you've got space. And then that really opens things up as well. You can almost create little circuits for clients as well. And so all of a sudden, it's not like a limited home gym experience. It's actually, a lot of what they can do is, if anything, beyond what they'll be able to do inside a commercial gym.
I think it's interesting what you say there about how they're not having to wait for kit. You can completely tailor the session to them, because that space. You're going to know that space inside and out. And I think a lot of people underestimate how much can be done from a home gym.
Yeah.
Unless you're a high level bodybuilder wanting to have 100 different isolation exercises, even then, I'm not being funny, I've done my entire, so I'm prepping for a bodybuilding show, I think in 9 days. My entire prep's been in my home gym. The only reason I've done legs at a commercial gym is because my neighbors were getting pissed off with the leg press, because it's making too much noise. If it wasn't for that, then I'd have done my entire prep at home. So I think a lot of people, as I said, underestimate what can be done with a small amount of space, a couple of well-picked bits of equipment, and just knowing what to do and how to mix things up and how to make adjustments, etc. So do you think that comes from people overthinking in terms of, the basic principles of training are progressive overload, good form, and exercise selection. So as long as you keep to those 3 principles, it doesn't really matter what you do, as long as you have good application of those 3. And I think too many people get too caught up in the science of XYZ, or I need to be hitting failure, or I need to be doing squats every day, or all these different nuances that can kind of come into it, and all the different ways in which people can achieve those 3 fundamentals.
Yeah, I see. This is where I think the industry, the current sort of what's going on at the moment. I'm always interested in things that come across and things that are new and like learning as much as possible. Because I really think that people who sort of like are stuck in the past, they're really losing out on all this new stuff that's coming out. But also, I think if we focus too much on all this new shiny stuff, we step over pounds to pick up pennies. And then our clients end up doing that as well. And for me, like I said, I'm not training professionals in whether it be sport, bodybuilding, powerlifting, anything like that. So for my clients, it's all about consistency and then enjoying training. Because for a lot of my clients, they think that a personal trainer's job is to be right up in their face, going, right, give me 10 more. I don't care if you puke, really like almost like boot camp style training. And that's what a lot of people's perception of PT is. Like, you watch these TV shows like The Biggest Loser and stuff like that. That's what they think they're going to be doing, that they're going to be literally like being pushed until they collapse. When they actually find out they can really enjoy the process and they can have fun. And, it's really interesting. And I remember I had a client who really wanted to get a heavier bench press. And I remember saying to him, I was like, well, the bench press isn't probably the best way to grow the pecs. There are things that we can do like with cables and stuff like that will actually be better for growing the chest and stuff like that. And he was like, Rich, I don't care. I just want a big bench press. And at the end of the day, what the client wants, I always say that the job of a personal trainer is to be a facilitator of what the client wants. And half the time, a lot of PTs put more barriers in place for that client, where I feel that we should be taking hurdles out, removing as many barriers as possible so they can make life easier for themselves. And so if it means that, I really like compound movements, I like squatting, I like benching, I like deadlifting. I would find doing a seated cable, cuffed cable fly boring as fuck. I just wouldn't want to do it. And if it was on my program, I'd probably do one set and I'll skip the rest, or I just skip it entirely. But if it's a bench press, I'll do it. And I think that's where, for a lot of clients, we need to find actually what they enjoy, get them into the habit of regular exercise, get them enjoying the process, rather than trying to overcomplicate them with tons of new info. Like, I had a client a little while ago, and I said, but we're going to sit down and talk through his nutrition. And then he came out with, oh, I'm really looking forward to this because I keep hearing people talking about a macro, and I'm really keen to learn what a macro is. And he had no idea about those. And this was his level of understanding. And this guy is a smart guy. He runs his own recruitment agency in the city. He's a very successful bloke. And it's just like that. That's how our understanding is very different to our client's understanding. And so then if I start talking to him about like glycogen levels and insulin, hormones, and make sure you're doing this because otherwise your ghrelin levels will rise and stuff like this, it's completely overloading them with useless information that they really don't need. And then they end up just not getting the benefit from it. One of my clients was saying a while ago that he saw a post online where someone was talking about artificial sweeteners in some people can cause what do they call it? Gastrointestinal distress.
Yeah.
Well,
I've heard that before as well.
To those people, if you say gastrointestinal distress, they instantly think the creature from Alien is basically just going to come out of their stomach and rip them open. Right? Not just they might fart a bit more, okay? Which is really the big thing. So this then person stopped eating protein bars and stopped taking protein shakes because they're like, oh, because it said it's got the artificial sweeteners in. I thought I should avoid that. And it's like, no. Now you just basically, you're taking 40 grams of protein a day out of your diet.
Or they might go to a sugary alternative, and if they're they might go for full fat Coke rather than Diet Coke. So I had that discussion with somebody the other day. Me and Dan have both just picked apart. Well, I've got flavored water here.
Delicious. It's Morello Cherry Freeway, the hallmark of quality from Lidl. It's delicious.
So it's one of those things that, like, if you've got so many calories to use in a day, it's a 500 ml bottle of Fanta, it's probably going to be 30 grams of sugar.
Yeah, about
so
that.
What's that, 200-300 calories, like, and your body's not going to register those because it's a liquid. And I'd rather somebody have a diet drink that's got like 1 calorie in, and it means that then I can give them more food through the rest of the day so they feel better, but it's got rid of that sugar pang. Now, if they were drinking like 5 liters of Diet Coke a day, then maybe you'd have a conversation with them about it. But as you said, the average person's probably not going to be doing that. They'll pick up a drink, or as you said, they'll pick up a protein bar, or rather than a Mars bar, or they'll have a whey protein shake. But if they're not, as you said, it's the nuances of, right, if you're drinking, it's everything in moderation, isn't it? So if you're having artificial sweeteners at every single meal, then gastrointestinal distress, as you said, is either you fart a bit more or you might have a bit of a runny poo. Like, that's it. Like, and if you are suffering with your digestion, maybe look at the amount of artificial sweeteners that are in your diet. But as you said, to the average person, they don't really need to pay attention to that.
No. And I just think this is where people overcomplicate stuff. And it's why I hate people using terms like, if someone has slightly rounded shoulders, people go, oh, they've got upper cross syndrome. It's like, never tell someone they've got a syndrome, because it sounds really fucking serious. And it makes people think there's something wrong with them. And it makes them think that they shouldn't exercise and that they need to see a doctor or something like that. And it's really kind of, I think for a lot of it, it's basically what I would call intellectual masturbation, right? You're not helping anyone, you're just jerking yourself off, right? And that's all that's happening.
Avoid intellectual masturbation.
It's a great way of describing it. I went on a rant the other week about the trend of personal trainers saying they're evidence-based, when really, in reality, I think I mentioned it last week, where they've watched a few Lane Norton videos and have read an abstract. It's like, that doesn't make you evidence-based. Like, have you sat and read the whole paper, like from start to finish? Like, have you actually really understand it? Do you know what this is going on about? And then, whereas they kind of, like you're saying, do these things. The other things, I was like, you have to, my favorite one is on the deadlift, you must pull your shoulders back and flatten your back and look up and keep your chin up. And some of it's so generic. And it's like, well, that's actually going to make that problem worse for that. Sorry, that technique's going to make it worse for that person. And it's a bit infuriating. I know Rach is having a lot of that battle at the moment with your pelvic health stuff. And it's just like, but I guess that's why we have jobs, okay? Because we need to educate and help people.
Off the back of that, though, it's like, obviously we do our assessments based on like movement and things like that, but it's also your assessment based on the person, who they are, and their understanding when they come to you as well as the client. Like, how far along in their journey are they? Who have they worked with in the past, and what are they coming to you with in their head? Like, what is their level of understanding? Because it might be that you need to unpick some of that because they've either misunderstood, or who they've worked with hasn't been like the best source of information. So it might be a matter of re-education, or it might be the case that this is not something they need to worry about there and then. So it's like, how you pick and choose your exercise selection and your regression or progression you do in terms with like the language you use and the level of application that they need there and then. If it's going to make a difference, you use it. If not, you wait. It's like a staggered approach. But like we've seen in like the transformation groups that we do, you kind of give the information there, but because it's not one-to-one, people will take and digest, and for some people it's just far too much. So they're trying to run before they're like even crawling. And then again, because it is group-based, they think, right, well, I should know all this. Everybody else here is consuming it as well. So we're all on like that level playing field, whereas it's kind of you sort of processing it yourself and saying, am I ready for that? I might want to be, but am I doing all of sort of the prerequisites to allow me to make the most of this information? Or is it just like more shit that I'm going to be thrown at something in the hope that it might stick?
Yeah, and I feel that with a lot of this information, it's like, they claim they do it with the interest of like their clients. But half the time I see people who've been on these like courses about biomechanics and stuff like that, just getting into arguments with other trainers on Instagram. And it's like, okay, so tell me how this is helping your client. that you're arguing with some bloke in America over what hits the clavicular fibers. Like, no one cares. Literally no one cares.
The best one I had was I put up a post that was like promoting, I think it was flexible dieting. And somebody was trying to argue like having a like set meal plan was like the best thing to do. And I was like, well, have a set meal plan then. Like, I'm not telling you what to do. Like, if you want to eat off a set meal plan, eat off a set meal plan. If this person wants to do flexible dieting because they can't eat off a set meal plan because they have kids, they have a wife, and they don't want to diet, like, let them crack on. I don't want to work with you who's trying to argue with me. I want to work with this guy over here who I can help actually reach their goals. So basically, you can fuck off.
It's like that. It's just I just find it so, and this is the problem, is that people say they're looking to educate, and then you look in the comment section of these educational posts, and it's just infighting, bickering, passag, comments and stuff like that. And if you're a newbie, then you see all this, and you're like, oh fuck me, that looks complex. And then you go look at something like Joe Wicks, and you're like, oh, this guy seems quite fun. I understand everything he's saying. He's talking to me on my level, and I can do all the stuff that he's talking about. Yeah, I don't really, so who are they going to go with? They're going to go with Joe Wicks.
You've nailed it. Like so you've really hit the nail on the head there. Like Joe Wicks, it was this massive trend, wasn't it? Everyone to absolutely rip Joe Wicks and say, "Oh, what a dick! Oh, look at this, stupid hair, and he's done this and all that." I'm like, well, just you're not his target audience. And even I know he made some bold claims with his recipes and things, I think. But then with not bold claims, there was quite a lot of calories and stuff. It's like we've all done that when we were younger, right? But then it was more like I think he has gone a bit more backtracked in terms of sorting out the calories in his recipes and stuff like that. But at the same time, this guy is insanely successful, and we had his PE stuff on when we were at home, and it's just kind of mindless hit. It was quite funny watching him jump around for ages and all that. But I was like, you've got to remember, as a trainer, as a coach as well, you end up working with a lot of people that have started with Joe Wicks and then want to learn more, and then you end up working with a lot of them. So you shouldn't, I don't think people should hate him so much. After watching him do all this stuff, I think he's quite funny. I've learned to quite like him.
Yeah.
I actually did that. I did like the first two cycles of his thing, and I actually got fairly decent results. But the reason it works is because it gets you to focus on something which is about like cooking, putting like actual ingredients into your body, preparing meals, looking at what you're eating, and then you start to feel good. So then you've got to buy in. So it could be horse shit you were eating, but if it actually made you feel good, you're going to keep eating that horse shit because you're getting out of it sort of the intended purpose as to why you begun something. So like, I'll put my hands up, and I don't know if I featured on like his online thing. I think I got in like one of the groups and I didn't make it online, and I was like, oh, for fuck's sake, man, Rachel, like, how do I get in this? And then I was like, right, I'm going to chill out. Yeah, but that's like actually what got me into sort of looking after myself a little bit. So I am all about Joe Wicks.
That's great. Yeah, he's I think I followed. I don't know if I followed him, but he's a mate of one of the guys I used to play rugby with at Isha with years ago, and you could sort of see how it started doing these like 15-second recipes on, was it Instagram at the time? Because it was what Instagram only had like 15-second videos. Do you remember that? You could only post 15-second video, and then just from there just exploded. But he's a guy that knows his marketing. Bloody hell, he's gone well for it. But I think it's a good, yes, he's not doing all these crazy stuff and all that, but yeah, it's good basic info. But then I think, like you said earlier, Rich, stepping over, was it pounds to pick up pennies? Is I love that saying. I think it's just absolutely spot on. I come from a rugby, then powerlifting, strongman background, and it's particularly in powerlifting, people go way, way, way over the top, like insane amounts, to the point where it's like, you look at some of the world champions around. I think Britain currently has the world champion under 120 class, and you literally look at his training, he's just in the garage, training from home, smashing, nailing his 5.5s, nailing his 3.8s, doing his heavy triples, adding a bit more weight. Just very simple thing, but the consistency over years is what's, as well as some genetics, as well as what's gotten those results. Not worrying about what tension band should I use, or is this chain the right height, and what degree of my bench should I use? And it's like, well, it's majoring in minors.
It's like looking at people like Luke and Tom Stoltman. They're guys who just basically who are just so good at the basics. The point where they've turned it almost into an art, and that's it. And I say that, you know, kind of going back to that Joe Wicks thing, and like, oh yeah, but he used to have these really high calorie recipes. Yeah, and Charles Poliquin used to tell people, if you have a sugar craving, mix 5 grams of glutamine with double cream.
Oh, I love the old Poliquin. Do you remember the old T-Nation days? Like, did you ever do it? Mate, I'm not joking. I think for a few months, I had something like 45 grams of fish oil a day because Poliquin said I should. Like,
you used to have the thing of you take 1 gram per percent of body fat.
Yeah.
And all this stuff and all the biosignature stuff, like it's mad. And you know, it's like, you know, no one will call that out, but we'll call out Joe Wicks and go, oh, that's irresponsible because he put halloumi in one of his recipes.
Yeah, it's insane, isn't it? It's like, you know,
what it is it's jealousy.
Yeah, I think so.
It's the fact that actually Joe Wicks knows how to market himself. He knows exactly the type of people he needs to work with. That whole he got in there first with like the kids' workouts. It wasn't the kids, so and it's the parents that he wants. So he did all those things for free, gave up his time for free. He had a captive audience. I think his following jumped from a couple of million to like tens of millions now. And every single time somebody'd be like, oh, you shouldn't do that. You shouldn't be making money off it. You should give that money to the NHS. He went, you know what? That's going to be a fucking great thing to get me in the paper. I'm donating everything YouTube's given me and I'm giving it to the NHS. So screw you guys and now he's stopped doing that. But all those followers that came to him in that time, when he puts out his new program, his new paid program, guess who's going to all see it first? So all these people that are salty because he's doing well for himself, it's just like, get to know your audience better, stop focusing on what somebody else is doing and improve what you're doing, focus on your business rather than what everybody else is.
Training like that though, because like we've seen in like the groups, like in our previous one and in the transformation group now as well, comparing yourself to other people throughout the process. And it's like, even if you've done exactly the same thing as them, same starting point, same everything, you are physiologically a different human and you are going to respond differently to everything. And that is like, if you are like identical, and we know everybody's not, and that's kind of the ongoing like conversation that I'll still have with like my online clients. I know we all do, and it's a case of, as much as we want this for you, we can't do it for you. As much as we'd love you to be 5 years down the line, you're not, and you kind of got to tick those boxes. And it's not the case of program hopping or doing something else because you fancy it that week. It's a case of, we need to know what's going on here so we can make the improvements on it. Are you sticking to the things that we've agreed on, the things that you said you would do, so we know where to take this together? But again, just with what all you guys have said, like we're talking about like the language and how we simplify that so it doesn't come across as being like quite a lecture-y, but also how we simplify like exercise explanations as well, because we've all had to do that with moving online, and it's not the case of being there to actually physically move someone. I think that's demonstrated more than anything in the past year and a half, just how good people's knowledge is at kind of what they coach, the people they coach, and the cues and nuances that you need to use that are very intra-individual as well.
Yeah, I massively agree with that. And like, so it's a thing like with like films like Shrek and Finding Nemo and stuff like that. They're kids' films, yet they have jokes in them that only adults will get because they know parents are going to be the ones taking the kids to the cinema. So they put these jokes in to keep the parents happy, and so the parents find it entertaining and not just bored. And I find it's the same thing with fitness, is that if you just try and drive all this stuff about moment arms and torque and things like that, people just switch off. They're not interested in it. You get someone, you know, pick an exercise that really, really suits them, and they get good at it, and you just suddenly just tell them, that was really good. That was a perfect deadlift. That was really, really spot on. Like, you know, you're really, really strong at this. You're really good at this exercise. And they're like, oh, wow, yeah. And they want to do it again. And like sometimes like they'll be going, oh, Rich, can we do a deadlift again today, please? It's like, yeah, of course you can. And it's just all of a sudden they're enjoying that process. Whereas if I told them, started to bore them to fucking tears talking about actually a seated hamstring, seated leg curl is going to be the best way to get the hamstring for its fully shortened position and stuff like this. Like, no one cares. And I said that person switches off and then goes somewhere else. And it's about talking and talking to the client's level and then kind of like upskilling them from there. And it's like, Rach, when we first started training, because obviously your knee was fucked, we were box squatting on a safety bar.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, down the line, you were back squat, high bar back squatting. Was it like 130 for reps? Yeah. So that's the journey. But like we started off with like, what can you do? You can't squat deep. So let's just find the level you can, put a box there, and that's where we're going to squat, stick the safety bar there. And that just really worked.
But that's showing like how you can progress something, but not like, oh, you've got to earn the right to be under the bar, you've got to earn this, which you'll also hear as well, and that can put a lot of clients off, because they're like, well, okay, just for example, like, well, you because of the size of you can't just get like under the bar or anything like that. You've got issues with it. If you're going for a deadlift setup, you need to roll it, because like you might have a spare tire around the front, some extra weight. That's not going to stop you from lifting. You've just got more things that you need to account for, and as long as it's coached safely, there's no reason why something can't progress. And all you're doing by, like, for example, I came in, you haven't got a leg press to put me on, and you don't know kind of how to manage me based on your experience. You either then have to refer me on to somebody else, or then you go, right, well, we're not going to squat today. I'm going to walk out that door. That's what I've come in to do. And that's what we all get with clients. They come to you for a reason. And that reason's like rehab. It's because you're known to be good at fat loss, just really good at working with a person, individualizing things. And that's what the person comes to you for. And it's, you are selling yourself with every session, because it's a paid service, it's a luxury, and we're very fortunate for the clients that put their trust and faith in us to help them. But at the end of the day, like we've seen across the past year, we're like one paycheck away from being on the street, basically. So as much as we want to work with that person, it's got to be going all in. And when you've taken your services online, sort of those drops in communication or not following through on things become like even more apparent. Like I know myself, a lot of people who've like moved from the coach they were with, because that few minutes on the gym floor where they might be like with the phone messing on, they're not going to see that when they're under a bar. But if they're on a Zoom call, coaching call, and they're expecting that feedback there and then, and their coach isn't active or isn't attentive, they pick up on that even sooner, or they don't follow through on a message. So that's my experience across the past year, and just feedback I've had from sort of new clients that have come my way as well.
Yeah, I'd absolutely agree with that massively. And like it's kind of like, fitness game never stays still. It's always changing one way or another. And, sometimes it's quite hard to stay in front of. But then I said, I think that's part of the challenge is I think there's always going to be sort of misinformation. Like when I first started when I first became PT, like Atkins was like the big diet that everyone was following. And then it shifted to, it shifted to other diets and stuff like this. And then it was like the Cambridge diet, the cabbage soup diet. And then it went to keto. It was like Atkins reinvented, and the cycle starts again. And there's always going to be that misinformation out there. There's always going to be that stuff that we have to combat. Like, previously was, like you said, it was people on Atkins battering themselves on HIIT, and people were dropping like flies in the gym and passing out. And you see that same thing happening again with people who are on keto and are doing HIIT workouts and stuff like this. And then people who are kind of getting into CrossFit, and then again trying to follow these like paleo diets, but do incredibly high intensity workouts, and end up with something, either they end up passing out, hurting themselves, potentially getting like, I've had a client who got a rhabdo from going to like CrossFit, because very, very first session was given a 200 rep workout. So it was like, you had to do like 200 overhead presses, 200 press ups, 200 air squats, 200 this, 200 that. Like insane amount of volume for someone on their first session. And they ended up getting taken to hospital with rhabdo. Jeez. Which, people listening, that's a condition where you work the muscle so intensely that it's the muscle itself breaks down, and then bits of muscle fiber get into the bloodstream. And then when that gets into the kidneys shut down. And it can be really, really fucking dangerous. And, this is where, like, we're always having to sort of stay in front of this, and there's always going to be obstacles for it. But yeah, it just comes back to that, removing the obstacles rather than putting new ones in the way.
Yeah, I think so. Good point, man.
Yeah, but there's a guy I really, really like. His name's Dr. John Berardi. He's the CEO of this Precision Nutrition.
God, he's been around for donkeys years, hasn't he?
Yeah.
So, the great principles, was it 7 pillars and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, like the hand size, the hand portion guide and stuff like that. I use that a lot. And there's one thing, I went to one of his seminars and he was doing a Q&A session, and someone said to him, right, let's say you've got a client, they drink 4 cans of Coke a day. They are ordering takeaway 3 times a week. They're very inactive, all this blah, 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 blah. What would you do with them? And he said, from now on, they only drink 3 cans of Coke a week. If they can do that for an entire week, then we start week 2, they're down to 2 cans of Coke a day. And he's like, that's the way I would do it. And he's like, if you want long-term success for that client, that's it. And I just thought that was really eye-opening, because so many people try to take them from like 0 to 100, like, right, taking all this stuff, going cold turkey, and these huge changes, like from day dot, like it's hard to do. And it's just, most people can do 1 can of Coke less a day. It doesn't feel like a chore. And then and then suddenly at the end of the month, they're not drinking Coke anymore. And now they're down to only 1 takeaway a week. And that is going to have a huge impact on their health. They're going to lose weight from that without even feeling like it was a chore. And that was something that was really eye-opening to me, because I felt that, like, when I first became a PT, I had to change everything. Right, okay, no sugar in your diet, and know this and know that, and I'm going to, try and like beast you in pretty much every single workout, which was really, I can see now how counterintuitive it was, and how counterproductive it was for my clients, because I was just bombarding them with way too much.
Yeah.
And so now, like, it's weird that the longer I've been in the game and the more I know, the more simple my programs are, the more simple my approach to nutrition is. And it's become like even more basic, to the point where, like, I'll give a client a program. They're like, Rich, are you sure this is the right program? Like, it looks really easy. And I'm just like, yeah, don't worry about that for now. Like, just stick with it for a bit, and let's see how we go.
I've got a client who's just started a new program this week. This is like her phase 4. So we've done postnatal rehab. We've done like a lot of work on prolapse and episiotomy, so much so that she has no issues with anything now. And she loves CrossFit, which I'm not anti-CrossFit, but I'm like programming for CrossFit, and I need to know that discipline because it's not mine. And her second session of the week literally has 3 exercises in it, and then like a refined 21-15-9, so it's like a 16-10-6, which is just kind of how many reps they do throughout sort of as their finisher as such. And that's her favorite one. And I was like, I wasn't too sure how we were going to respond, because on paper, like, it's about this big. And she was like, I love it. And I was like, okay, why? And she was like, because I feel like I can achieve so much in it and push my strength, but also have enough left in the tank to actually still make progress later on in my more CV-based work. And I was like, that's the whole aim of everything. We simplify and push where we can, but we also match it to what you want as a client. Like, I know that you enjoy these side of things, but also know that you want to progress with your clean and jerk and your snatch as well. So they're in there, but it's not overcomplicating. It's kind of picking movements that work together, that the client responds to and works well with, and having a place and time for it. Whereas previous me would be kind of going through, like, as you guys have done in your program, going, have I done enough on this? Have I got enough back work? And have I got enough hamstring based work in? And then it's that time in the game. And as you just said there, Rich, was like the nutrition side, the more you know, the less you realize you need to give, because that's relevant for that person at that time. And it's, but again, that's training, that's investment in mentorships, that's investment in coaching. And that's something that really does, I feel, set coaches apart. You might have been in the game for 15 years, but when did you last learn something and apply it?
Yeah. I mean, again, another real eye-opener for me was I did a little bit of interning with Saracens, and I was working with Andy Edwards, who was their head of strength and conditioning, and who's now actually working with the Springboks. And when I went there, I was amazed at how simple the training was. Like so basic. And these are professional athletes who are playing a full contact sport at the highest level. And I remember asking him about it, and I was like, so what's the reason behind it? And he just said, Rich, we train rugby players. If what we do in the gym doesn't make them a better rugby player, we don't do it. So he goes, if someone's absolutely smashed to bits because they did way too much, lower body work, and now they're sluggish and slow around the pitch, it hasn't helped them. Mm. And it was that. It's like, what's going to help them be a better rugby player? That is my job. It's not my job to beat people, to thrash them, or anything like that. It's like, what's going to help them?
Yeah, we had Tim Swinson on, who's from Saracens. Same sort of thing. Just get ready for the weekend. He says he trains very differently to the twilight years of his career as he did when he was early. He's basically echoing the same things, like very different. He was, for him, he was saying, what, the leg press is great for me. On paper, you would say I wouldn't get any of my players doing a leg press, whereas he's like, no, totally, squatting just fatigues me too much at the moment. Leg press hits me in the right areas, getting a bit of work in. It's great. And I was like, yeah, it absolutely makes sense to include it in an example there.
Yeah,
it's kind of
like the Tigers once did an entire season, and their main lower body movement was leg press. Mm-hmm. And it's just like, this is a premiership side. Like, these are professional athletes, and people get like way too fixated on certain things, and they think that the successful teams have got like some magic thing that they do. Absolutely not.
Absolutely, no, I agree with you. That 100% on that one. Absolutely, man. So I think basically we'll sort of bring it to a close, but I think the main points of today was kind of, focusing on the what is actually important, what's going to change you, not majoring in the minors, and just sort of breaking it down. I think if this has come away from here, it'd be certainly what small changes can you make to your training, your lifestyle, diet that can add up every day. We talk about percentages, 1% every day. What can you do to sort of slowly build that momentum up and get that train rolling? And if you did one little thing every day, you did that every day for 9 months, you'll be in a completely different place, eh?
Yeah, I read this awesome stat about Djokovic, the tennis player, and it said that when he was something like 60 something in the world, and versus when he was number one in the world, is like he only improved his game by 5%. But it meant every single game he was winning 5% more points. And that was the difference that got him to number one. And people really underestimate small changes, really underestimate. And they didn't see that. It's like, I always say, like small, it's like compound interest. It starts out small and then it snowballs and it grows out and it grows out and it grows out. And like I said, just people majoring in the minors, they put in so much work and they don't get much out of it, unfortunately. And that's where I'm a big fan of the small stuff.
Definitely. Well, it's been great to have you on today, Richard. I think we
thanks so much.
Another quality professional on who we can kind of bounce ideas off. That's not just chasing after people's money. So yeah, it's definitely good to get you on, have a bit of a talking shop. So I mentioned it earlier, but if people want to follow you, kind of like see your work, get some more information from you, where's the best place to find you? So like Instagram, Facebook, website.
It's pretty much just Instagram at the moment. I'm not huge on the kind of like, I got the whole thing of like, I got away from an office job so I didn't have to be sat at a laptop all day. And so like, I just hate being sat at a laptop. So I'm really kind of like, I should have a website and stuff like this, but I don't. But so my Instagram is pretty much where people can find me, which is just rac.fitness. And yeah, that's there. And always enjoy talking to new people. And I'm one of these people I can chat about fitness literally all day long. So that's the place to find me.
Awesome. Well, I will definitely be keeping an eye on your content. As I said, I had a quick look at it and it all looks Really, really cool. So yeah, it was great to have you on, guys. I'm sure I will speak to you too in the very near future, and we chat pretty much every day now. So yeah, it's been great to chat. Hope everyone has a wonderful evening, and we will be back next week. I think Dan's source to say guest for next week. So yeah, we should have another interview next week.
Awesome.
No worries. So enjoy the rest of the evening,
Thanks
guys.
so much, guys. We enjoyed that. Cheers.
Thanks, fellow mate. Thank you. Bye.